So we get Commissioner, Doug, can you hear us?
Yes, I can. Very well.
Yeah, we can hear you. And I thought maybe you're on the other side of the world, but it sounds like they heard you might be in the same time zone.
I am. I'm in conference meetings or with my region, much like your Governors Association. We have ag commissioners with my colleagues working on policy.
Great. Good. Well, thanks for representing us at North Dakota at that, and thanks for taking time away to dial in today. We appreciate that. Drew is here also, so we've got the full commission. We'll kick off the meeting by the roll call, and then we'll proceed to the Pledge of Allegiance.
Commissioner Goring?
Here.
Attorney General?
Here.
Governor?
Here. I'd like to invite anybody that wants to join us for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America
and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
First order of business under item 2A is the consideration of the May 28th meetings. Meeting minutes.
So moved.
We have a motion. We have a second.
Guys in the same time zone.
We have a motion and a second. Are there any additions and corrections to the May 28th meeting minutes?
No.
Hearing none, we'll call for the vote.
Attorney General?
Yes.
Commissioner?
Yes.
Governor?
Yes, motion carries. Item 2B, consideration of contract for administrative management and technical support for Lignite Research Development and Marketing Program. Take it away, Reese.
Thank you, Governor. Commissioners, we're asking for your approval of the contract that's included in your packets as attachment 2. This would allow us to contract with the Lignite Energy Foundation for technical services for our Lignite Research Program. The Lignite Energy Foundation is a 501c3 nonprofit organization. According to their bylaws, their board representatives are 2 representatives from Lignite Mines, 2 representatives of electric co-ops, 2 from investor-owned utilities, 1 from an independent power producer. The cost of this contract would be $15,542 per month and would be paid from the Lignite Research Fund.
And Reese, thank you for that update. I know this is something that we took action on earlier this spring to not renew. And the idea was to bring it in line with similar contracts that we have with similar boards and commissions. And under the terms that are being presented here, do you feel this satisfies the objectives that the commission was pursuing when went into the renegotiation?
Yes, it does. And the contract is the same template that we use for the other technical advisors. So it is consistent.
And the other technical advisors would include which?
It would include our pipeline authority, our transmission authority, and our oil and gas research council technical advisor.
And this has been, you've reached an arm's length transaction that everybody's agreed to. So if we approve this, it's going to be proceed forward.
Correct.
Super. Well, thank you for all of that work. If there's not any other questions, we'll call for a motion to get this on the table.
Yeah, I don't have anything to add to that, Governor. I would move that the Industrial Commission approve the updated contract with the Lignite Energy Foundation for the Lignite Research Development and Marketing Program Consulting Services, and that we authorize the Office of the Industrial Commission to execute that contract for consulting services.
We have a motion. We have a second. We have a second. Any other questions or comments? Hearing none, we'll call for the vote.
Attorney General?
Yes.
Commissioner?
Yes.
Governor?
Yes, motion carries. Karen, Reese, any other Office of Industrial Commission business?
Yes, Governor, I do have one item. As we are approaching the beginning of the second half of the current biennium, I would like to propose and ask for your approval the 4% compensation change for the Industrial Commission Admin Office team, small but mighty team, and all deserving of the compensation adjustment that was approved by the legislature. So that would be the 4% for the second half of the current biennium.
Okay, we'll
So moved.
seek a motion. We have a motion. We have a second.
Second.
Motion second. And again, as Aaron noted, this is part of this 4% that the legislature passed last session. This is standard across all. And with that, we'll call for the vote.
Commissioner,
Yes.
Attorney General,
Yes.
Governor,
Yes, motion carries. Okay.
Governor, if I could, I've been noodling on something this morning upstairs because I've been thinking about this recently. We've got a lot of, I don't have to tell you, there's a lot of moving parts with the Industrial Commission. Right now, there's a lot going on with our bank in North Dakota and over at Lynn's shop, Lynn's former shop now I could say. And we're in a period of transition, and it's occurred to me, in fact, I was wondering if maybe I missed that we did this, but we have not. And I want to make a motion and then have a discussion about it. If there's a second, I'd like to move that we remove the interim designation from our executive director's title, and then we make that appointment of an executive director for our Industrial Commission staff, make it permanent. The nature of our, okay, yeah. Get into that discussion.
Okay, we have a motion and a second in terms of withdrawing the interim title from Karen Tyler.
Yeah, simply making it a permanent appointment in recognition of making a recognition of the work that's been going on. And what I would term the excellent work. It's embarrassing talking about someone, they're sitting here to your left. I don't mean to do that, and I don't mean to wade into something if there have been other discussions, but of course the open meeting nature of our work calls on us to bring these matters up without much preparation. So I did scratch down a few things upstairs though, and I do want us to consider these as we consider making this appointment permanent. Obviously Karen can reject the appointment if she doesn't want it, but I would ask us to consider, like I say, the heavy amount of, large amount of transition that's going on in a really important time in our state. We're going to have a new head of the Bank of North Dakota. We're going to have a new head over at DMR. We're going to have change in the makeup of this Industrial Commission in about half of a year. And all of that. Then we've got a legislative session coming up, critically important work going on there. This team, they've done an excellent job, and rightly so. People were very concerned what was going to happen in the wake of the departure of Carlene Fine, who did so much good work with all of you for so long. And we appreciate that. Karen, if I may, you have led the team through a very difficult, challenging period. Difficult just because there's change that comes in that, and then also all the issues going on. Ably leading the hiring processes that are going on, and I get feedback from my designee, the chief deputy, who's here with us today too, and I appreciate all of that. And so, anyway, I could belabor that more, but I do want to just say I made this motion because I intend to support this with a recognition that Karen may have different views, but from my perspective, she has very, very ably led us, and I personally would love to see that leadership go on for the time period up ahead. So I am intending, obviously, to vote for this, and I hope that we can, as a commission, get one of the moving parts to stop moving, and we can go forward with the other work we've got to do.
Commissioner, did you start to say something there?
Earlier, I interrupted with a second. I was afraid that Drew was going to talk me out of it. No, I'm very supportive. I appreciate the sentiments shared by Drew. He's spot on. I agree.
Well, I would just say, again, appreciate Drew, you're bringing this forward as of course, we can't talk about these things ahead of time. So there's not been a discussion. But I would want to say in support of this motion that this is working because we have a team, with
Sure.
the division of labor between Karen and Reese, and what Reese is bringing to this effort is critical. And of course, the addition of multiple new positions on the commission, the working out of the backlog, the implementing of the grant software on the outdoor recreation and other places, and getting us better at all the grants we're managing. The work that Brenna's doing on that was, again, Carlene was trying to do all of the minute meetings and everything else herself. The work relative to getting to be a paperless office, but having to work your way through 50 years of
Yeah.
plus of documentation, at a time when we've had a record amount of activity and record budgets from the legislature to support all the things we're doing across clean, sustainable, and other new projects. So the workload has gone up tremendously, and this would only work if we had a team. And while we're have a motion here to drop the interim title, I want to just say again that this is working from my point of view because we've got the strongest team we've ever had, and in particular we've got expertise across finance and oil and gas, coal, minerals, whatever that is across the whole team, and I think that I would like to be reaffirming at the same time the important role that our Deputy Reese is playing as part of this whole effort.
No, for sure. There's nothing, we don't have any daylight between us on that perspective, Governor. And I just wanted one quick thing to add to that. I don't know that I ever come back from an industrial commission meeting that I don't, in talking with the chief deputy and others in our office, and I marvel at the volume of work that you all do and that you oversee. I mean, it really is remarkable. A lot comes into these meetings every month. There's an enormous amount of policy and executive decision-making things coming through here. And it's an honor to be able to do that as a member of the commission, but it would be impossible, beyond impossible, without excellent work by our industrial commission staff. And as I say, led by Karen and, like you say, the deputy, and everybody's got these roles. You do it so capably and well. Like I said, we were joking earlier, Governor, every time I walk, well, it's not a joke. Every time I walk in, Brenda lets me know what I'm messing up because she grabs my book immediately and tells me there's all these things wrong with your materials, Drew. And so, no, right up to the last minute. They're always doing it, and we appreciate it very much.
Okay, any other commissioner, any other comments?
No. Good, thank you.
Okay, we'll call for the vote.
Attorney General,
Yes.
Commissioner,
Yes.
Governor,
Yes, motion carries.
And then one thing I should put on the table that I don't know what the answer is. This I know that we had a salary variance from what Carlene was being compensated at the end of her tenure, and I don't recall what we. Sorry to talk about this publicly. We don't have a choice, right? So I don't know what the percentage pay, but I know it wasn't a full salary as warranted. Obviously, very much merited, warranted under for the position. So I would also like to make a motion that we address that, where we have some plan for how we're going to very immediately address that. I think that I work a lot of hours. I'm here a lot, and I always see Ms. Tyler's vehicle outside too. There's an enormous amount of work that's going in to these responsibilities, and I think that having removed the interim designation, I think we should also remove the interim salary and address that in whatever the Industrial Commission sees as the appropriate salary point now or in the next to immediate future.
What I'm going to recommend, what we've done on these and some other boards, is that maybe we would, if you're going to frame a motion, is that we would have each of the members appoint someone and then come back. This is a nice time because it's the beginning of the year. We're implementing the 4% increase, but take a look at comp across everybody in the Industrial Commission, the new positions, the deputy, Karen, take a look at everybody and saying, does this make sense relative to the workload? We've got a much better perspective now than we did even a year ago when we began the biennium. But if we were going to do that, I think then each of us could quickly appoint a designee, and then that group could work with HR on the job ratings, the job scoping, or the work that Molly's doing regularly with agencies to just see if we get some outside comps to make sure that everybody is compensated at the right level. If someone would want to make that motion.
Yeah, I'll make that motion. I think that's great. I just wanted to launch that discussion though to make sure that we address that. That's something we talk about.
So we got a motion and a second, and then I guess we could do it quickly. Get our designees in, and ask someone to lead that. And I'd be happy to have someone from our office, would either be like a Jay Spieler Lieutenant Governor Miller, but have them lead that and coordinate with the other two designees and get OMB involved and quickly here in the month of July, before the end of July, get this thing scoped out for a comp recommendation for the team.
That sounds great. I would assume that I'll be designating the chief deputy for that, and she's not doing that much else, so she'll have the time to. I know the designees are spending a lot of time together these days on hiring. It's just such important work. We really, really appreciate it. And so, yeah, I think that's.
Okay, we got a motion, we have a second, and we got a game plan and a outline for taking a look at this for the whole team. Is there any other questions, Commissioner, questions or comments?
No, thank you.
Okay, and you'll share your designee with Karen, so we'll know who it is at the appropriate time. You can take your time to figure out who that's going to be, but we can proceed with the vote, and we'll call for the vote now.
Attorney General,
Yes.
Commissioner,
Yes.
Governor,
Yes. Motion carries. Okay, next up is unless there's any other industrial commission.
Thank you
business?
for that. I just didn't know where to insert that version. That's been on my mind lately. Appreciate that.
Yeah.
Thanks to the commission.
Thank you. And so moving on to Roman numeral 3, North Dakota Mill and Elevator. Did I get to Karen? We've got your name listed here.
yes. So this is the annual transfer of mill profits. We have 5% that goes to the Agriculture Products Utilization Fund, and then 50% of the annual profits to be transferred to the general fund. So what we do is present the request for that authorization at this meeting, and then Kathy will have the actual numbers prepared for us to present to you at the July meeting. So here we're just requesting your approval to make the transfer in the 5% and the 50% to the Ag Products Utilization Fund and the general fund as to be determined.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. I'm going to support this, but I'm going to just raise it as a flag, but we've got this cash management study going on, which we're participating in. And I know that they're still meeting. This would be a small item, but I would request that the cash management group take a look at this, sort of the history of these transfers, because it's we currently, as we know, the commission, we've taken out, we think appropriately, we took out some long-term debt from the Bank of North Dakota, which we also chair, because we were matching, long-term debt with capital projects that are going to last 30 or 40 years, as opposed to just trying to take out operating loans. We got a lower interest rate when we took out the longer-term debt, so that was a smart financial move to do there. But when we take profits out and send them back to the general fund, and then general fund profits get deposited, the general fund balances get deposited to the bank as a liability, and then we're, we could be taking those same dollars and using them to pay down the bank loan, is what I'm saying. And so there's a triangulation going on of where the cash is flowing, and it's just another example where the interrelated nature of an entity like the mill with the bank, with the general fund, probably should be one of the specific examples that the cash management folks look at and go, hey, is that optimal for the state of North Dakota? I mean, it works, but at the end of the day, we should be trying to optimize for the whole state. So just ask them to take a look at that
Okay, I'll connect with
the
Susan.
particular history of the annual transfers that go on. Sometimes that comes out of the legislature, doing that. And as we've talked about before in other incidences, there might be a smarter way to do this.
Okay,
I
Susan and I
agree.
actually are meeting on it tomorrow, so. Definitely.
Yeah, and we had an I agree from the Ag Commissioner on that. Okay, so I'm just saying that's an action item.
Sure.
It doesn't diminish that we got on. I will be supporting this motion that we have, which is the direction on it, both giving dollars to APUC and back to the general fund. Good news is we had another great year at the mill and elevator, so it's nice that we're able to contribute back. We'll call for the vote if there's no other questions or comments.
Commissioner,
Yes.
Attorney General,
Yes.
Governor,
Yes. Motion carries. Any other mill business today?
No other business.
Okay. Justin, good to see you, Pipeline Authority. And thanks for joining us.
Good afternoon. I'll let Reese get a slide deck queued up here, and I want to split my time a little bit here this afternoon. We're going to just do a quick update on just some project developments, and then I'm going to spend the latter portion of the time talking about the appropriation that was made last session related to the $60 million per biennium, and just continue the conversations about how the commission may have used that kind of going forward. So with that, no major changes. Everything when we look at price forecast activity, no major production activity changes on the outlook. Still forecasting significant growth opportunity, particularly on the gas side of the play. And then we'll talk here in a moment about some of the pipeline developments. I want to focus first on the eastern half of the state. That's an area that we don't spend a tremendous amount of time talking about, but I think there's some exciting things happening that the commission should be aware of. So Dakota Natural Gas, they are an LDC, local distribution company that is relatively young in North Dakota. They started off with their projects bringing gas to Drayton, Hillsboro, Mayville, Portland, those communities, bringing gas off the Viking system across the Red River to the east and bringing that over to the west. They are now working on, started construction on another expansion project to bring gas to Arvilla and Larimore for the first time. So they're going to bring new gas service to the not only residents but also commercial users in those communities. So that is something that they had to work through the PSC. There were some rate structure changes that the PSC was flexible with and allowed them to do that. There was also House Bill 1170 last session that assisted with property taxes to again help on the economics and make these type of projects go forward. The other one I want to provide an update is the Wahpeton project. This is something we've talked about at high level in the past. Again, Wahpeton today does have a natural gas line that runs out of Minnesota coming across. They have interruptible service, and it was not conducive to any type of long-term development and utilization in that community. So WBI proposed several years ago the construction from Mapleton south to bring gas to Wahpeton primarily. They were the anchor tenants on that system. Kindred will also be getting a natural gas connection on this system. Communities of Walcott, Colfax are also in communications with Montana Dakota Utilities on the distribution side. So there's some opportunities there for those communities for the first time. And so excited, pipe is on the ground. The right of way is getting laid out. Construction will be in full swing in the coming days. Target to have this done by November of this year. So that's an exciting development. That has been something that's been in the works for many years. A lot of hard work from the elected officials in that area to make that happen. So hats off to everyone that came together on that project. Another one that didn't get a whole lot of publicity. This was an expansion to serve the Fargo-Moorhead area. This was a compression project by Viking, which is owned by ONEOK, to bring another 30 million cubic feet of gas per day into the Fargo-Moorhead area, just for your run-of-the-day growth that community has been seeing both on the residential and the commercial industrial side. So that was completed at the end of last year and is now fully in service. A couple maps. These are just for discussion later. So now we'll start looking westward again. How is westward?
Just on the,
Yes.
the Viking line, where's most of that gas originating from?
It is solely originating up in it's the point known as Emerson on this map. It pulls up Canadian gas down to again Grand Forks, Fargo, and then it continues on towards the Mid-Continent Iowa markets.
There's the Great Lakes, you talk about Clearbrook times when we're talking other markets, but does the Great Lakes go through Clearbrook, Minnesota?
It goes very near. This would be on the natural gas side. So Clearbrook is on the crude oil terminal.
All crude oil?
Yeah.
But a similar trajectory down there through
Minnesota. Yep.
Correct.
So northern border, again, this is the system that we're continually monitoring for gas utilization. Earlier this year, we exceeded 90% utilization of that line. That has been something that many years we've been watching and forecasting. this market condition play out, and it's continued to play out largely as expected. Which means as we approach that 90+%, we are then running out of capacity for moving our natural gas. And so then the natural question becomes what's next and what type of projects are we going to have in place to address growing volumes. The BTU, I won't dive into that today. That is something that for some parties, they watch that closely as well. FERC, the TC, the Bakken Express project, again, that is one that we've discussed a couple of times. That project uses existing pipe from Glenola, North Dakota down to Cheyenne with some compression upgrades in North Dakota. That is still at FERC for approval on the rate structure for that project. I will note for some of our discussions later, we'll just watch that bottom right portion of this graphic where we talk about the combined 75 cents per decatherm rate. We'll just flag that in your head, and it might be helpful as we go forward here.
On the northern border market share slide, what happened to the Canadian gas? When you're sharing, when we squeezed them out to flip positions with them, where we ended up with 90% share.
Yeah, so they then are taking the second best economic option for that gas. And so they're competing then on the Canadian mainline system, which competes against Marcellus in the east. And so we've got all this gas on gas competition. So there was some open space that allowed flexibility that if we lowered our price low enough, you could price your way into that system. And in a scenario that we find ourselves in that gas on gas competition, the lowest price gas is going to move. And that's not a position you want to be in. It works to keep the gas flowing, keeps the oil flowing. But thankfully, they had some alternatives that we didn't have, and were able to continue to take market share in that system. So going forward, this is the updated graphic when we look at our situation. There's two different scenarios to play out. The bottom half of this graphic is the one I think that's of most value. That assumes that we take 100% of Northern Border's pipe space. You have my base case in red and my low case in blue. And anytime you're above that zero line and there's white space, you're short on capacity. So under the scenario where if we were able to take 100% Northern Border space in the base case scenario, we would be okay until 2026 when the Bakken Express project comes online. Buys us a very short window of time before the next set of pipeline gas solutions need to be in place. If we're not able to secure 100% of the space on Northern Border, you have the top portion of that graphic where by this time next year, heading into 2026, we may be in a more difficult scenario. That will be very much market driven. How bad do the Canadian producers at full capacity want to stay on that system? How bad do Bakken producers want to get on that system? We saw earlier this year a similar type of situation in West Texas. The Waha hub was negative for a considerable amount of time. They were paying to get rid of their gas. The market was so tight that producers, your value was in the crude oil. They knew they had to move the gas, and so they were essentially paying people to take their gas, and so it got that extreme. I'm hopeful we don't get to that level of extreme price competition. It's always a possibility, but until we can get these systems in place, it's going to be extremely tight, I think is a safe way to put it, for the near future. So going forward, 2026, this is something that we've talked about as well, taking a look at how much does new gas capacity impact the state of North Dakota from a tax revenue perspective. And it's a linear scale. The more additional gas pipeline takeaway and gas solutions we can put in place, the more value that brings to the state. I put some dotted lines on slide 18. I apologize. Hey, Commissioner, I haven't been using slide numbers. I hope you're keeping pace with me here. So I think 400 million is a good starting point. It's kind of a minimum talking point when you bring people to the table and you start talking about new projects. It's going to take a project of considerable size to put it in the economic category to give it the chance for success. So I just highlighted a couple numbers. This is big impact to the state of North Dakota and the industry as a whole.
Want to give your bottom line there again on that slide, Justin?
The bottom line is
the bottom line in terms of the tax impact and the and what you're suggesting here on this trade-off point on your graph.
Yeah, so I think 400 million is a good, anything less than 400 million for a sizable project, the economics just don't pencil out very well. You have to have a sizable project, meaning the impact in North Dakota for any of these projects that we're working on is going to be considerable. It's when we're looking at some of those tools the legislature put in place, those are absolutely critical and necessary as we move forward.
Can we ascertain from your XY axis there that if we don't do this project, that we'd be missing out on potentially over $500 million of tax revenue annually?
Yes, absolutely.
Annually.
Annually, yep. So what's next, right? The options beyond 2026 when Bakken Express is scheduled to come into service. The one I want to focus on very quickly is the consumption side. This is one that's gotten a lot of attention recently. We all heard the announcement from Basin Electric for additional gas-fired generation in the state. Other projects looking at consumption within the basin. One thing that we've struggled with on the pipeline side, on the consumption, as it relates to gas-fired generation, is the challenge of matching oil field activity, oil field routine 24/7 operations with the power sector, which has a tremendous amount of variability and fluctuations in it. And so that top left portion of this graphic, what I'm showing, this is an EIA study that said for combined cycle gas turbines in play, they're typically running 64% on average. So they do not have a 90, 100% runtime. And so when you've got an oil industry that does run 24 hours a day, it becomes challenging to match up some of these potential demand sources.
Why is that? Why 64%? Why?
Yeah, good question. So the right-hand portion of that I just grabbed a snippet from SPP that operates here. This was earlier this month. This is an hourly look. And so if you look at the green line, that's wind generation. The brown line is natural gas generation. So when the wind is blowing, the gas generation gets pulled offline. And so we have this intermittency. How do you address that? You address it with storage. And the positive thing that we have in the basin is we have a large storage resource right along the Montana-North Dakota border. Challenge there is that at the scale we're talking about, we don't have the connectivity in and out of those storage fields today. And so to mirror up some of our demand projects that are coming with the needs of the oil field, there's going to likely need to be some expansion to and from storage so that you can take out some of the wild fluctuations that occur in the marketplace to actually add value to the oil field versus just adding value to the power sector.
And the storage field you're describing was a private sector created that out of geologic storage?
Correct. It's a depleted natural gas field that for decades has been converted to a gas. North America's largest.
So they can inject in and then inject out quickly during these peak periods.
They could if there was enough pipe to and from. So right now they've got enough to meet, kind of regional winter swings and, they didn't overbuild it. There was no reason to. Now we've got these new projects coming that if you really want to match oil field needs, power, it's going to take some incremental capacity to and from.
They're going to have to be moving in and out on a daily basis, not on a seasonal basis.
Correct. Yeah. And
Do you
so
have a sense of what the cost would take, or is anybody looking at scoping that project on the increased daily in and out capacity?
yes, the company that owns and operates those pipes in that gas storage field are working on that as we speak.
And you're in communication with them.
Yes. Yep. And then the challenge, I've got it highlighted here, is who pays for that? Is it the power sector? Is it the producers? Is it pipeline company? How do all those costs get allocated? So that's where the discussion right now is at standstill. No one wants to pay for that incremental pipe capacity. So
If you matched up the work that you're doing on the gas work and the gas peaking plants with the new Transmission Authority report that shows that in 2025 that we're going to be having potentially brownouts and blackouts in both SPP and MISO because of the premature shutdown of base load. At the same time, we've got an increase in demand for for power.
Yeah, so Claire and I, we certainly, do have some good communication on these projects and
So
the scope.
with those identified shortages of demand, are the economics for people building gas-fired power plants increasing in their favor in our region?
Yes, absolutely.
And if somebody said, I'm gonna build a gas-fired power plant to produce base load electricity on demand, how many years from when they make that decision to when it would come online?
What I'm hearing, typically about 3 at minimum.
So in some ways, we're too late already relative to hitting what we could be. We could have supply constraints coming sooner than we can build new capacity.
Pipe projects that we're currently working on at the earliest 2028 in service.
So we implies that we need a sense of urgency,
Yes.
what we're doing.
Yeah.
Or figure out a way to speed up.
Yeah.
The permitting and
Yeah.
the processing part. Okay.
So this, just again, more background on the various users and the variability in those. Won't have to dive too deep into there. So the forces for the new pipeline projects. For years, we've been in what we call a supply push scenario, where we knew we had more Bakken production coming than anyone in the local region could consume, and it was like pushing a rope up a hill. The challenges were significant of where to move that gas. Now we're seeing not only a supply push, but we've got some demand coming into the region to help on that demand pull side. There are also system reliability benefits, but the big driver and the game changer that we're seeing over the last 6 months is more and more demand pull coming into the region, assisting in these project developments. And so that brings me here today. But I wanted to really spend some time queuing up. We know what the legislature did last session, bringing some funding through the Bank of North Dakota line of credit to the Industrial Commission Pipeline Authority. So we get to the situation where, all right, a new project has been developed. Who signs on the dotted line to make those projects happen? So you've got several buckets of folks that would traditionally in blue be at the table, and now the state of North Dakota through that program now being at the table. And so there's a lot of either non-existent information or misinformation, given some past efforts with grants or different things that have come through the Pipeline Authority of where we're at. So I want to just queue up the conversation so that if or when sometime in the second half of this year, a project comes to me, comes to the commission, I at least want to have the conversation queued up so that we're a step ahead of where we're going. So needs analysis, high-level routes and costs, and those things are being completed and are very near completion for a number of projects that would assist in the natural gas situation going forward. What will be coming up at some point would be what you see in yellow, which is that opportunity for parties come in, show their level of interest, and at some point you get into a binding scenario where they can then sign on the dotted line for here's our commitment level to this project. So last session, there were some guardrails from the state that were put in place on this program, the $60 million per biennium, some conditions on how it's used, which I feel everything was very appropriate. We'll touch in a moment about some guardrails that FERC has at the federal level of how we can use these tools and this funding. Some key terms, these are just for reference. I apologize that sometimes I use jargon that may not be familiar with folks, but the key things you'll hear me talk about are the term shipper. That is someone that is signing up and has firm space on one of these pipeline projects. Capacity release, that is our primary objective with this program, is to release any capacity that we acquire through this program. You may also hear me use the word tariff. Take away any geopolitical taxes and goods and imports, exports. Tariff is a pipeline term for the document that states exactly how they operate and the structure of how they do their rates, their terms, their conditions. So if you hear me say tariff, that's what I'm referring to. I'm not referring to any type of import, export things. We just talked about the open seasons. You'll hear me talk about a reservation rate. You can just think of that as the price that is paid to have your capacity on that pipeline system. No different really if you had a reservation at a hotel. You've got a price you're going to pay to have that that obligation for service. And then at the very bottom, I'm very bad at this, I put gas units. You hear me talk about a decatherm or an MMBTU, those are one and the same. And typically it's fair enough rule of thumb to just say 1,000 cubic feet, 1 MCF equals 1 MMBTU equals 1 decatherm. So apologize, I'll try and keep those units cleaner here as we go forward. So what does this look like? We've got $30 million per year. Where do those costs go? This is a real life example. I pulled this from one of the regional pipeline companies that got their tariff structure at the bottom. We're interested in their commodity charge, their reservation charge per day. Add it all up on the right-hand side after fuel and electric, and you've got a price. 43 cents per decatherm or per 1 MCF of gas moving on that system. Now, where does that get us? We've got $30 million a year. Depending upon the project that would come before the commission or projects that could come before the commission, we would have to say, where does this $30 million get us relative to the project and how do we support as best we can in our position? So I had you take a note earlier about the Bison Express project to Cheyenne. That was 75 cents. So in that scenario, theoretically, we could have been very close to 110,000 decatherms or 110 million cubic feet of gas per day of capacity on that system. That was existing pipe with new compression. Any scalable project is going to have not only new compression, but new pipes. We're going to start sliding right on that x-axis, and we start to get to higher project costs, meaning we can still participate. It's just going to be at a smaller volume depending upon where we fall on any particular project and the value it's going to bring to the state of North Dakota. So I just put together very clear-cut, simple case, just so we can, again, get terms and dollar figures wrapped up. So I'm proposing here just a 400,000 a day project. Private sector shippers, whether it's producers, whether it's demand power generation users, coming in at 320 of that 400. And then the state of North Dakota, we would have the ability then to take the additional 80. And the example cost I have here is 80 cents in our negotiated agreement. And here's where things get important for how we're going to manage this going forward. That precedent agreement is the legal binding obligation between the commission, the pipeline authority, and the pipeline operator. That is a negotiation. You sit down with the pipeline operator, negotiate price and terms of that agreement, and move forward. In this example, we have a 10-year term at 80 cents per decatherm. The other important number to have in your mind here is what happens afterwards. For all those parties that are not anchor shippers, they have what's known as the max rate. Again, a comparable in your hotel, look at the back of the door, you got a max rate on there, what they can charge you. So it's much closer than it is in a hotel room, but 83 cents in this example versus what we negotiated. We're coming in as an anchor shipper, so we negotiated a lower rate in this example, 3 cents different. That's going to matter here in a moment. So now we have capacity in this example. What do we do with it? FERC has some guidelines that we need to follow. The state of North Dakota has some guidelines in the Pipeline Authority statute of how we need to follow it. So FERC puts it in 3 buckets. They say 31 days or less. We've got certain criteria to make that happen. State law prohibits that in 5417.7. We can't even consider daily, which is good. I don't think any of us want to mess with daily capacity releases. The second bucket that FERC puts out as an option for parties that hold capacity is 32 days to 1 year in time frame. That has its own set of criteria that if we ever went down that route to release capacity, it would require bidding through the pipeline company itself. There's a bidding process they have. Any rate is allowed at FERC in that scenario. State law prohibits us from discounting our 80 cents, so we couldn't put it out for bid and accept 60 cents or accept 40 cents. We could accept $2 if it was in high demand, but it just gets a little bit more challenging when you're looking at those monthly or seasonal releases like that. I think optimally, you want to be in a scenario where you're releasing capacity to a party at 1 year or greater terms. And FERC makes that very clean for us. You can only do it, there's no bidding. You can only do it at max rate. So we have, in our example, 80 cents. We can only release that capacity at 83 cents to parties. So there's actually a delta. And you would, in that case, make money on that transaction. You're allowed to roll over that with a party. If after 1 year or 13 months, we say, okay, company XYZ, we want to continue and roll this over, we can just continue to roll over those releases throughout the rest of our 10-year term. So very clean and very simple structure going forward. So I've put together kind of a hierarchy of how I think, in my mind at least, we would like to manage this capacity from a most desirable scenario up top to a least desirable at the bottom. And that is long-term releases to replacement shippers greater than 1 year at max rate. Then you get down into the less than 1 year. Again, there's restrictions there that make it more challenging. Third option that we haven't discussed really in much detail yet is our ability to release our capacity to an asset manager. They can take our 80,000 decatherms, they can use other capacity they have, other relationships they have, and they can monetize that on our behalf. That is something we could do if the commission really wanted to go down that route or prioritize it above releasing it. But that one, again, you've got a little bit more uncertainty surrounding it. And then lastly, in the absolute worst case scenario, we would be obligated to pay on a monthly basis our precedent agreement terms until the point where we could reach a release or an asset management agreement to monetize at least a portion or all of that value to the state.
In that example, it assumes that we've bought this capacity and then we're trying to trade it before there'd actually be physical shipment of the product. Because North Dakota actually has gas coming from state lands, would we ever be in a position or a scenario where, one part of the state which is buying this capacity could coordinate with, say, the land board, which is managing the minerals, either through the fungibility of our gas with someone else's gas, because we produce significant amount of gas off of state lands. Is that scenario been considered, or even a possibility where we could actually be in a position of fulfilling this contract by actually shipping gas?
So very good question. And so I have been in conversations with Trust Lands. We've put together some volumes of what their volumes are. Challenges, the state then has to be able to take it. We'd have to review legally, can they take it in kind at the gas plant tailgate and get it back into the state hands versus kind of a pass-through mechanism. That's the tradition today. So yes, those conversations are ongoing. It's not a tremendous amount of volume. When we kind of got down to it, it wasn't a game changer, but it might add some value if we get in a position where there's some constraints on minerals that the state's involved in.
Well, thanks for looking at that, all those angles.
And even that would require, in this scenario, some type of asset management. Unless the state was going to get a trading team together, it would require someone else to manage that, which they can. And even so far as saying we've got state end users. I mean, this building, there's nothing prohibiting the state using its gas, taking capacity, and making deliveries to the University of North Dakota or NDSU, state hospital, all these facilities as well. Again, they're not at scale, they're seasonal, they're not massive, but it's something to consider from a cost savings or efficiency perspective. So again, just a couple scenarios, in this example, we've got ourselves a situation where we've got capacity. I'm envisioning with that top portion, we can do some type of RFP process ahead of time to say, okay, which parties are interested in our capacity, or what type of terms. Price is out of the question because FERC already tells us, so we're not negotiating price with any of these parties, so price is out of it. It's just terms. If there's one party that wants 3 years and one party that wants 1 year, clearly it's in our interest to go with the party that would take 3 years. And then we can get into that rollover process going forward. bottom portion, again, just the other extreme, same. We've got the full 10 years, and now we're out working with more parties just on an annual basis, releasing that capacity or monetizing it. I think this is going to get a little too much in the weeds. I think I'm running out of my time allocated, but I wanted to, again, cue this up. There's a lot of exciting things happening. I didn't want to come with this information and potentially a project in the coming months. I wanted to get this in front of the commission first, just to get the thought process going. If you or your team or anyone wants to dive into this deeper with me, I'd be happy to do that. I've requested some draft kind of generic precedent agreements that I'd like to get in front of the AG's office, so that we can just start some reviews of those documentations ahead of time, so we can come to the negotiating table if that happens.
Justin, going back to the big picture, the whole reason why we had strong legislative support for this was, in your example, if we're trying to do 80 out of 400, 20% of a capacity of a project, is that reasonable to think that the state of North Dakota as an anchor shipper for 20% could be the catalyst that actually tips the economics and they actually build the capacity? Because I mean, the bottom line goes back to, if we don't have enough capacity, we're going to cap our oil production, and then our state revenues are going to go down.
Correct. Yep. And so when we look at the users, we look at the cost analysis, there are projects that even pennies or fractions of pennies are going to matter to whether or not they put a project in North Dakota, whether they put it someplace else. And so any incremental capacity not only benefits the oil industry and oil and gas revenue, but it allows those projects to be more competitive and position themselves here.
Helps bring the capital to North Dakota, because they've got other places where they could be building pipe.
Building pipe, building demand uses, power, industrial uses, and so on. Yep.
Have we, there certainly seems to be a change in the last 2 months with the need for data centers clamoring for power because of the increased need for electricity for AI. And I think that it would probably be worthwhile for you having a conversation with sort of the level of interest that's come in through the Commerce Department that has really picked up in the last few months, where people are interested in power from any source, as a matter of it's wind, peaking natural gas, base load lignite, whatever. I mean, they're just like, we're looking for power. And they used to be worrying about latency, which is we got to build our data centers, near where the users are, New York, Washington, DC. Now they're not worried about latency. They're worried about you can't get a transmission line built. So we want to build the data centers near the power source, and then we'll just shove the data down the broadband that's being built around the country. If we can't shove the electrons, we'll shove the data. So I think there's been a huge shift of interest in people coming to North Dakota. Right now, we export a lot of our electricity, but some of those folks are interested in getting upstream to where they would be the first user and sign contracts for that electricity.
Yes.
So I think the whole nature is changing really rapidly, because this is the first time in 30 years that we've had a significant increase in demand for baseload electricity. It's all coming from it's coming from the finance and the AI sectors. That's where it's coming from.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. In the last 2 months, things have accelerated. On the pipeline side, the development projects 3 months ago have, to meet those power and those demand users. Yes, there's a reason I'm here before you today. Things are.
But part of it I think is actually trying to map out is maybe we don't need as much pipeline if we had more peaking plants, and we could use the gas here and just turn it into electricity. And then the electricity gets turned into data, and then the data goes out on broadband, and that becomes the data becomes our new takeaway for our natural gas.
Yes. Yep. And a year ago, I would have said, I don't think there was any way we could consume a large portion of our gas needs in state. My tune has changed completely. I think there's enough interest coming that with the combination of storage, that's going to be critical to matching those users, the producers, their needs. So between our storage assets here, our production, these projects, it's exciting. I'm very optimistic.
Well, yeah, it is exciting. And it's exciting and probably challenging, because we might be behind the curve in terms of the demand curve that's coming. But do we need to consider legislation that would be advanced by like that we've done to get this legislation passed, came from with you taking the lead and educating legislators, but do we need the same thing for that increased in-out capacity out of the underground storage along the Montana-North Dakota border? I mean, is that something where instead of waiting for the market to build it, that maybe we could help be a catalyst with that over $500 million of lost revenue you showed us at the front end that we don't want to lose? Do some of that in advance to try to get that capacity built to keep the industry rolling.
So the current pipeline authority language allows us to do storage as well. So we've got the tool in place. It's just whether or not this funding is going to be adequate to do everything we want to do right now.
So under the same legislation, we could just increase the funding, or we could potentially have that be the first bill that gets introduced in January next year on a rapid basis.
Correct.
In terms of that, but I think, I'm looking at Jay's too, but this is an idea that we should think about from a budget recommendation too. But I think that because if I don't know which one would help the quickest. More takeaway or more storage, because if more storage could lead to quick production of actual power plants here, we should, take a look at a timeline, which one helps they solve the demand equation.
Yeah, and to that point, I'm just kind of thinking out loud here. This program is structured such that dollars, for any of the dollars in this example I give you, wouldn't start moving until 2028, once that pipeline is in service. Our funding for this project, or for this authority, starts a year from now, July of 2025. So there's even a short window of time where if there's storage opportunities or things we can use on a shorter term basis to its capacity, we do have that power today. It would just have to end for any other obligations or increase funding, however that's best structured.
Well, when you are coming back, it'd be interesting to have you go as deep on the storage scenario as you did today on the takeaway.
Yeah, I'd be happy. Yeah, it's fun stuff. So
great. All right. Well, thank you, Justin, and I appreciate your going deep. Thanks for the offer to meet with commission members and their staff. I appreciate how all the analysis you do.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, next up, we have the Bank of North Dakota. And thank you all for joining us.
Something?
You want?
Your nose. Your nose.
First order of business.
I'm giving you my official notice.
And I think we have to vote on this, don't we? I don't think Todd's got a single vote on his resignation. So I think
Quitting is contagious, is all I have to say.
You should have done your homework on this one.
Well, yeah. So, no, I have decided that July 2nd will be my official last day, and as it said in the letter, it's been the highlight of my 42-year banking career, and I personally want to thank the members of the Industrial Commission. I mean, you've been great to work with and it's been fun. It's made it exciting and challenging. I want to thank you for all your support, both professionally and for the bank itself and personally, and I hope we've developed, at least I think you're all friends now, so hope you all feel that way, but I appreciate your friendship too. It's been a great ride.
About you when you're here, yeah.
Okay, that's good. So.
well, we know this has been thoughtfully planned and a long time coming, and we appreciate you sticking around maybe a little longer than even if you wanted to help us get to this point. So it's with great reluctance that we accept your resignation, because you've been a great contributor. And I do have a resolution, which my fellow commissioners I'd like to read. And then if you approve, we can vote to move this into the official records of the North Dakota Industrial Commission. But So this is a resolution appreciation from the Industrial Commission, which includes Attorney General Drew Wrigley and Commissioner Doug Goring and myself. Whereas Todd Steinwan began his banking career, I'll add a few things that actually aren't in here, but he had been way, way back at Norwest Bank in 1982. So that's 40 plus years as we count that. Joined the Bank of North Dakota in 2015 as a Senior Vice President, Chief Business Development Officer. And on July 2nd of 2021 was promoted to President and CEO. Over his 8-year career at the bank, Todd has provided dynamic leadership, restructuring the lending and credit division, guided the management of legislative directed loan programs, which are now over $1 billion, oversaw the asset growth of the bank from $7.4 billion to the current level of $10.2 billion. And whereas Todd is an advocate for BND team members, sharing his leadership philosophy and mentoring to advance their professional careers, Todd's leadership by example includes his mantras of do the right thing always. And you can get a lot done when you don't care who gets the credit. Todd was also instrumental in navigating B&D's team members into the hybrid workforce after the COVID pandemic. And whereas Todd has been a driver of continual innovation, during his tenure, he sought to increase the efficiencies in state government by fundamentally transforming the loan application process for financial institution partners, leading the transfer of B&D's residential loan origination and servicing to the North Dakota Housing and Finance Agency, and leading the creation of a one-stop application process for political subdivisions seeking infrastructure funding from state agency programs. And whereas Todd is a tireless advocate for higher education, overseeing the BND education market team and loan portfolio, and also serving himself and his own personal time on the University of Jamestown Board of Trustees. And whereas Todd has decided that it's time to retire, again, I've tried this once before. Turns out he's good at everything except retiring. But spend more time with his family and friends, pursuing his golf game, traveling with his wife, Shelley. I've run into Shelley in Newton Airport. I know she's excited about that last sentence that I just read. And now, therefore, the Industrial Commission hereby expresses its deepest gratitude to Todd Steinwan for his 8 years of dedicated service to the Bank of North Dakota and to the citizens of North Dakota. And we, the Industrial Commission of North Dakota, wish you, Todd, the very best in your retirement. Adopted this 26th day of June, 2024.
Thank you.
We have a motion to adopt this resolution.
So moved.
Have a motion. Second, are there any additions or corrections, or you want to go back and reject the resignation letter?
We've tried that a couple different ways, but
Okay, well, we'll call for the vote.
Attorney General,
yes.
Commissioner,
Yes.
Governor,
Yes. Motion carries. It's now officially adopted as part of the record. But you're not, you're still on the clock.
Yes.
Till
Yeah.
July 2nd. So we should jump right into the next thing. And I would, if we could notify, I think Tristan is taking photos today, but when we get done with the bank section, we'll grab some photos here with Todd today.
and Governor, as a formality, we need to accept Todd's resignation letter and then make an appointment of an interim president. I'm recommending the appointment of Chief Financial Officer Rob Fenig to serve as the interim president and CEO. And he'll act in such capacity with such authority and with the requisite compensation until such time as the position is permanently filled.
And that would, Rob, are you willing to accept such appointment? And that would be, I guess, the day that Todd resigns.
Correct. Joyce.
And this is for fellow commissioners, this is an important step while we continue the search, because we have to have someone who's got the signing authority as the bank president. And I think that, again, we have to talk about these things all transparently, but Rob, you're not currently applying for the CEO job.
That's correct.
And so I think it was important, and I go along with Karen's recommendation that find someone who's not in the current, not currently in the pool of candidates, or will not be going through the interview process, so they can have all their focus being on making sure that the bank from a risk and management standpoint is being covered when Todd steps down. And I think we've got full confidence that Rob can do that. And thank you for being willing to do that on an interim basis till we complete the search.
Yeah, makes sense. I so moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second, and if this is people looking at attachment 6, this is a combination of accepting the retirement resignation of Todd and then appointing Rob. So everybody knows what we're voting on. Any questions or comments? Call for the vote.
Attorney General,
Yes.
Commissioner,
Yes.
Governor,
Yes, motion carries. Thank you, Todd, and thank you, Rob, for stepping up. And then as the next is the item B, which is the approval of the pilot program and rural workforce initiative to support housing.
Hey, Kelvin, why don't you go ahead and maybe introduce it and we'll have Caitlin maybe get a little more of the details. So,
Makes sense. So I'll kick this one. So over the course of about the last 2 or 3 years, we've really been working in particular with Grafton to look at how do we address the ability to build workforce housing in rural communities that are growing rapidly. And so we have the Grafton example where Marvin Windows is wanting to expand significantly. We also have, as you know, Ellendale, which is now has the Applied Digital development that's going on, which is over $1 billion investment and will probably have about 50 permanent jobs. So as we've worked our way through this over the last couple of years, the financing challenge that we've encountered is that we have construction costs in these communities that are very similar to Bismarck or Fargo, but we don't have the rent capability that we see in the history that we do in those communities. So how do we bridge that gap? And so we've met with Marvin Windows and their developer. We've met with Applied and their developer. We also sat down, as you know, the governor currently has the housing task force that's underway. And so we actually have sat down and met with the Housing Finance Agency, Health and Human Services, Commerce. Jace was part of that meeting, reviewed this concept with them. And this is really a rifle shot on the housing issue. We're really trying to address a specific issue, which is how do we help rural communities that are growing quickly build workforce housing? And that is different than affordable housing, which we work with Housing Finance Agency on. And so as we've worked our way through this, we have come up with an idea, which is this pilot program on Our Wish. And I'm actually going to turn it over to Kaylin and have her walk through it with us.
Sure. So, excuse me, focus on some of the high level concepts in which we see this rifle shot focusing on. So we're looking at communities under 20,000 in population that are going to have a growing need of at least 10 jobs. I think the population piece, we looked at the list of obviously communities across the state, determined who probably doesn't have that proven rental market and who could really benefit from this type of program. As Kelvin mentioned, the project must demonstrate that there is like an imbalance in the revenues that they can produce and the cost of financing. So it's, if there are communities in which those numbers work out, this program isn't necessarily the fit for them. It
Because
is
an example could be that Watford City's got less than 20,000 people and
right. And I think the issue that we may run into in communities like that is there's probably not one industry or one business that's willing to step up and put their name on a facility because the job movement and careers change in that industry. Or I think these are smaller communities that are maybe more reliant on one or two different businesses in that community.
and somebody's making a long-term commitment, in this case, to a
Absolutely.
data center or manufacturing plant.
Mhm.
But they're kind of, the traditional market might go, hey, if that manufacturing plant closes, then what happens to the
Right.
to this capacity?
Right.
So then you've got more risk on the investor side based on
Yes.
the lack of diversification of employment in these communities.
Right. I think the situation in Grafton that we're looking at, if Marvin Windows could deploy this work to a different community, a different state, then Grafton, I mean, is going to see obviously a negative impact to their population dramatically if they can't fill these, because the work will go elsewhere. So
So perhaps when you're doing this pilot, that because this difference between like a Watford example and a Grafton or Ellendale example, I think would be well understood, but we should try to write something in the terms of the description of the program that reflects this narrower, less diverse
Sure.
economic model in those communities, so that it's not just population. Not just population, it's population plus A plus B that would create the criteria that would cause you to look at this.
Yep.
Okay.
I think there's two key pieces to it that we want to see in place is that there's the community providing support. That could be the community share of an interest buy down, maybe they're donating land, infrastructure, something along those lines, as well as the company that is expanding is willing to contribute some kind of equity. In the case of Marvin Windows, they can donate labor, materials in addition to cash equity. Obviously not going to be the case for every company that's going to be expanding. So that might be just a true equity contribution. And I think we're saying, okay, the community is in, the company is in. There's traditional equity into the project, maybe 25 to 35%, and the numbers still don't work. So those are the projects that we're looking at tackling is above and beyond the traditional equity terms that we would typically see.
Marvin, give us windows for the Ellendale project too.
Really good question.
You should ask.
We'll put another asterisk on the bottom.
We got sliding doors too.
So the maximum amount that we're looking at, or the parameters that we've set, is up to 20% of the project cost, which seems probably like a large number, but in the case of the Grafton project and Ellendale potentially as well, there was 35% equity coming in from either contributions or true equity, and we really needed about an additional 20% to make the project work. Truly, the cash flow does not work and is not greater than 1-to-1 if you don't have it about a 50% equity into the project. And so it seems dramatic, but it is true. I was very surprised when we started running the numbers initially to say, wow, this is actually what it needs. As we talked with Karen too, we talked about looking at maybe a lower interest long-term loan, or maybe we do an interest buy down type of program. And those were not great enough to make projects work to incentivize any developer to want to move forward with the project. So as I said, 20% of the project costs or the matching contribution from the company. So if we only see a small contribution from the company, they're willing to put in, 5 to 10% of the project. That's where our limitations will be as well, because we want to know that they fully committed to it as well. And then we set the maximum as a dollar amount at $3.5 million, which led to our $10 million ask as far as capital contribution. Knowing we've got at least a couple of projects in the queue, potentially have room for an additional one as well.
So that would get us, this pilot would get us to potentially 3 communities.
Correct. Yep, that's how we see it today. And then as far as what the form that these funds will go in is, I think we're going to be flexible, convertible debt, subordinate debt, a loan. I think we really want to model it similar to the HIF program in that there's no repayment expected, except for, of course, theirs is forgiven at the end of the period once they've met that 15 years of affordability. Or in this case, we're probably going to work out some agreement. I think each of these may be unique in how we recoup our dollars. And the intent is that hopefully we can bring those dollars back in and reuse them again. And maybe through a sweep throughout the term, and maybe when the project's sold, I think those terms will be flexible.
Yeah, I think the evergreen portion of that is a key to this component, because I don't think there's support for just doing grant programs, but there could be support for trying to create the catalyst that gets that private sector dollars rolling.
Yeah, and that's really, I think, the key of what we've talked about is how do we use the state dollars to incentivize the private sector to really step up and move the projects forward. And so in the case of Grafton, as we've talked to them, the discussion with the developer has been, okay, if we come in and help you this project and it proves out, will you then stay and build, other multifamily or townhouses or single family houses? And they're like, yeah, if we can prove the market, we'll be here. The other thing that's interesting is that as we have worked with the companies, they have not only talked about making commitments related to the equity in, but in the case of Ellendale with Applied Digital, they've also had conversations about, okay, if we do this and maybe all of the houses don't rent right away, then maybe they look at providing some rent support for those houses to make sure that they are working with the developer to make them whole. So I think there's some really innovative approaches that I think we'll see as we put this together and begin to roll it out.
How are you staying close to the recently formed but going very fast housing? The housing task force.
I think Calvin is now a member of it, right? We have them on our calendars going forward.
Yeah, great.
I think the big thing, Governor, we want
I was going to say one thing in the first 2 roundtables we had, one in Fargo and one in Bismarck, was that part of the cost that's going up is because of all the red tape.
Yeah.
Yep.
I mean, we're driving some of the cost. I mean, some of these guys in Bismarck said it was adding, 10% or $30,000 to a home in Bismarck was some of the code regulations. So those are things that we those are non-financial.
Right.
It's material from a financial standpoint, but it's things that we could take action with from a state standpoint that would help cut some of that red tape.
So we're trying to just say, there's a couple projects that need to go quick and get done. So we'll take some of our capital. We truly think this is a pilot. We hope to learn as we go and then work with that council and that group going into the next legislative session, say, hey, this seems to be working. Here's some tweaks we need to make. And then would look at, hopefully be able to give some recommendation about here's the level of funding that's going to be needed to go forward. So truly, really a pilot to just try and get it started and see what happens. Yep.
And to be clear on the workforce, task force is the last two sessions, what's the engine that's pulled the train on everything that we've done has been workforce, because we've got capital flowing to North Dakota, as we just talked about with Justin. We've got capital coming from existing things. We just don't have the labor.
Yep.
And then now we know even in the state of North Dakota, we've had people that have had job offers at, senior cabinet level job offers. They've accepted the job and then they can't find a place to live in North Dakota. And they can't find a place to live in Bismarck. And so then they're like, hey, we can't move there. So that is it's becoming a new constraint that we've got to address. And so I'm glad that you guys are jumping in on this thing. And this, like what we did with childcare, this is not a long-term task force. This is a hit it hard for 8 months and then actually come with legislation recommendations that we would get in front of the legislature before the meeting.
Yeah.
So that's it. So I'm really glad you guys are jumping in on that. So what do you need from us today?
We actually need the authority to use $10 million of our capital for this program. I think there's a,
Behind the
Attachment 7 and 7A.
yep.
I heard the A Commissioner.
So moved.
make-
Second.
A motion and second, and I'm presuming that Doug, you're looking at attachment 7 on the
Yes.
10 million.
Yeah.
capital. Okay, super. Any other questions or comments? Okay, we'll call for the vote.
Commissioner,
Yes.
Attorney General,
Yes.
Governor.
Yes, motion carries. Thanks, Kaylin.
Thank you.
All right. Hey, Kirby. Hello. You're going to take us into the general loan policy. That's our next order of business.
You gotta give Kaylin some authority.
Yes. Yes, I have a reading. I have a few policy changes for your consideration. First one does relate to Kaylin. She was recently to our financial institution market manager position. That is a previously filled role. That was a role that Craig Hansen was in prior to his promotion to chief lending officer. At the time of Craig's promotion, we took it out with policy. Hindsight, we maybe should have just left it in because now we're asking to reinstate it at the same levels that it was previously. So she would fall into the sole and dual approval, which is the senior management of authorities for loan approval. And this is the CEO role. That role has the ability to set authorities annually. We review that. That's for all the business bankers and down. But for senior management, it does require policy change. So we propose that change. And then if you look at environmental on page 29, this basically it's putting into policy what is our current focus. So today we've got a lot of good guidance and policy related to environmental due diligence for potential borrowers, but not for existing borrowers. So we do environmental due diligence on existing borrowers as well. It's just we haven't had it in policy. So what we're proposing here is to say you're an existing borrower and you've not previously had a resolution, you weren't on our top 20 high-risk list for environmentally sensitive industries, then at the time of any new monies or renewal, you wouldn't need to do any further environmental due diligence unless the use of the property has changed to now being one of the top 20. That's essentially what this is saying. It was originally a top 20, and now you're doing new monies or a renewal, you will need to do further environmental due diligence, which would include an environmental questionnaire of the borrower. So that's essentially the change. It's, again, what we're doing in practice. We just haven't had it in policy.
And these borrowers would have a lead bank other than us. Is that lead bank required by federal law to be doing these environmental questionnaires? I mean, so then we're doing one on top of that, or is this
Every bank has different policies related to environmental. Some are very, very strict on environmental due diligence. Some are not. So we, at times, are probably more do more due diligence than what a lead bank would do. And this policy would lay out what we expect, what we require.
And the whole point of this, when we say environmental, this is to try to identify unexpected and extraordinary costs. Some building that used to have a dry cleaner in it, somebody that's got an underground tank storage, I mean, something where you could have something that could blow the whole lending model up. This is not some soft, squishy, environmental questionnaire. This is things that are directly related to the viability of the loan.
Yes.
So phase one, phase two, any of those types of things that would come out of that. For that research.
And we've identified the top 20 industries.
Yep.
You know, I could show that to you. I don't have that here today, but, there's a list over 1,000 industries, and we picked the top 20. If it fits in that industry, we need to do extra.
Have I hit 2 of them, gas stations and?
You got them, you're good.
Hit the
You
top
got
two. So that's that change. The next page is on page 91. This is the WISH program that Kaylin and Todd just talked about. Kelvin. So I don't know if we want to go through this anymore. It basically summarizes in policy now what we're planning to put forward in the WISH program. And the last page is page 100. This is our bulk propane storage tank revolving loan fund. Back when this was first adopted and put into from the legislative session, we didn't actually have the code yet, exactly where in the North Dakota Century Code it was going to fall. So now we know it's section 9-52, and we also have changed the maximum loan amount from 180,000 up to 500,000. So those two changes would need your approval.
Okay, and then as in others, we just need a motion and a vote. There's not a first or second reading on these changes. Okay. These were shared ahead of time with commissioners and their staff. Any questions on these changes?
So moved.
Grabbed by Kaylin. Does anyone else see that? Yeah.
I think we're adding some women into the power.
Our bankers are happy to get another
Yes.
approver in the mix. Our customers, it just helps with lots of different things that we're dealing with.
As we've looked at all our loan growth, our portfolio's gotten to be so large, it just, to administer correctly, we just needed to fill in that position again. So better, faster, smarter. So it should be better for us. Yep.
Great. We had a motion by Commissioner, second by the Attorney General. Are there discussion, comments? Call for the vote.
Commissioner,
Yes.
Attorney General,
Yes.
Governor,
Yes. Motion carries.
And lastly, all we do is have the minutes from our last advisory board meeting, which was on, or the April 17th and 18th, the risk committee minutes, are there for your purview.
Okay.
Nothing
Anything else?
exciting.
Anything else
that
in
we
open?
covered. Oh,
Okay, then we need to move to closed session.
that's correct. We've got
And,
two more ones. Yep.
About, how long do we think we'll be in closed?
Greg, how quick you gonna do these?
Quick as you need it to.
Keep it. So we've got 10 minutes.
10 minutes?
We have a BND and then we got another session.
Yep.
Just for our, we think it's going to be at 30 to 40 minutes,
30 to 45 minutes.
30 to 45 minutes.
Yeah, I can give you a really good summary.
Hold on.
If that's an executive
Need
too,
a
right?
motion.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, so Governor, I would move that under the authority of the North Dakota Century Code, section 6-09-35, 44-04-18.4, 44-04-19.1, 44-04. Section 19.2, the Industrial Commission entered into an executive session for the purposes of Bank of North Dakota confidential business and attorney consultation.
Second.
And all the other stuff.
We have a motion and a second. We'll call for the vote.
Commissioner,
Yes.
or sorry, Attorney General,
Yes.
Governor,
Yes. Motion carries. The commission will move shortly into executive session regarding the Bank of North Dakota confidential business pursuant to North Dakota Century Code 6-09-35 to consider those items listed on the agenda under the Bank of North Dakota confidential business. Only commission members, their staff, commission staff, and B&D staff will participate in that executive session. After Bank of North Dakota executive session, the commission will need executive session for attorney consultation regarding those items listed on the agenda. Only commission members, their staff, commission staff, and commission attorneys will participate in that executive session. And that relates to changes to the renewable energy standard and the rated carbon-free standard under Minnesota statute. That's what the second executive session is about. I remind commission members and those present in the executive session that the discussions must be limited to the announced purposes, which is anticipated to last, and on this sheet says 1 hour. The executive session will begin in about 5 minutes. Executive session has ended at approximately 3:20 p.m. Commission is reconvened in open session. During the Bank of North Dakota executive session, the commission made a motion related to the approval of 2 loan applications. We'll call for the vote on those 2 loan applications that were made during executive session.
Commissioner,
Yes.
Attorney General,
Yes.
Governor,
Yes. Motion carries on the first motion. Second loan motion.
Commissioner,
Yes.
Attorney General,
Yes.
Governor,
Yes. Motion carries. During the second executive session, we had a consultation consulting with our attorneys regarding the Minnesota Renewable Energy Standard, the newly created carbon-free standard under Minnesota Statute Chapter 216B. The commission consulted with our attorneys. We're seeking a motion to approve the submission of a letter by this Friday as part of the comment period on that particular piece of Minnesota legislation. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
We have a second. We have a motion, a second. Any questions or comments? Call for the vote.
Attorney General,
Yes.
Commissioner,
Yes.
Governor,
Yes, motion carries. In addition, also during the executive session, the Industrial Commission met on matters related to contribution limits under IRC 401, section A17, related to North Dakota PERS and the North Dakota Mill related to contribution limits for retirement plans. There's no formal action to be taken other than the consultation that we had with attorneys during that executive session. That completes that executive session. We're now back and open. And the next thing that we have is Public Finance Authority. And back to you, Karen.
yes, we do have a member of the Public Finance Authority Advisory Committee. Her term is expiring at the end of this month. And so we have that recommendation for the appointment of Linda Stahovec. They might be familiar.
I'm a big fan of hers.
Yeah. We're all a big fan of Linda's, and so it's a request to reappoint Linda to the Public Finance Authority Advisory Committee for a term ending July 1st of 2027.
So move.
Second. We had a motion and a second. Questions or comments? Call for the vote.
Commissioner,
Yes. Yes.
Attorney General,
Yes.
Governor,
Yes. Carries. And that's concludes business on public finance. We'd like to welcome the Housing Finance Agency. Dave, Jennifer, great to have you here with us. We have a reappointment as your first agenda item.
I'll let Karen.
okay.
She's the appointer.
All right. Also, for the Housing Finance Agency, we actually have 2 members of their advisory board whose terms are expiring, Larry Nygaard and Lisa Rotbold. So we're seeking reappointment for both Lisa and Larry to 3-year terms on the Housing Finance Agency Advisory Board ending July 1st of 2027.
And that reappointment will also include Lisa as vice chair.
Yes, thank you for catching
Yeah.
that.
And that's
So move. So move.
got a motion.
Yep,
Do we have a second. Motion second. Call for the vote.
Commissioner,
Yes.
Attorney General,
Yes.
Governor?
Yes, motion carries. Okay, now, back to you, Dave and Jennifer.
Okay.
Got it.
Alrighty. I believe the first item was a request for the Industrial Commission to approve an issuance of a multifamily tax exempt revenue bond for Lashkowitz River Lot 4, Series 2024A and 2024B in an amount not to exceed $16,500,000. And so this is the 4% transaction for the Lashkowitz Riverfront new construction, which is replacing the demolished public housing, also known as the Lashkowitz High Rise. It'll be 110 units. It's a twin deal, so it's a 4% and a 9% deal. The 4% covers floors 2 through 4 and will encompass 8 units. Are there any questions about the transaction? So the transactional documents that are available for you is a resolution authorizing that issuance, a trust indenture, a financing agreement, and a regulatory agreement. The deal is set to close July 8th the week of July 8th.
And this is going basically is back on the property where the tower
Yep.
was demolished.
Yes,
Yeah, it's a
Yep.
great infill project
absolutely.
on a low income on existing infrastructure.
Yep.
Okay, we have a attachment 17. There's a proposed motion.
So the
Yep,
Ag
so
Commission-
move.
Right, we have a motion. We have a second.
Second.
Motion second. Call for the vote.
Commissioner?
Yes.
Mayor General?
Yes.
Governor?
Yes, motion carries. And next up, one more.
Yep. So part 2 of the deal is the Lashkowitz Riverfront 9, which is basically the first floor and will encompass 27 units. The deal decided to go through with a taxable bond issuance in an amount not to exceed $6 million. And so there's a resolution for you to allow that issuance as well.
So move.
We had a motion.
Second.
We have a second. I've got a question for the agenda that all the commissioners have. This is a 5 million versus 6 million.
So there was a last minute change to bump that up to 6 million. And your resolution that you will be signing also reflects not to exceed 6 million.
6 million, okay. And so then perhaps when we're recording these, the agenda for the minutes, we can make that adjustment.
It's correct in the motion.
Yeah.
Just didn't get updated on the agenda.
okay.
So we'll get it.
Okay,
That was my last minute. The deal structure changed really suddenly. So
okay, well, we appreciate your
appreciate
charging
everyone's
right to the
flexibility.
finish line. Way to go.
Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, we've got a motion and a second. We'll call for the vote.
Commissioner?
Yes.
Mayor General?
Yes.
Governor?
Yes, motion carries. Okay, thanks for coming over for the fast work there, and congrats on the revenue bond issuances.
Thank you. Really looking forward to seeing it.
Yeah.
Start.
Hey, Reese, a lot going on with the Heritage Fund. And we got Bob here. Good to see you, sir. Thank you. Good to see you.
I think the commissioner just had to drop off.
Okay. We've lost, the ag commissioner is at a conference. He said he's going to try to be back on again 15 or 20 minutes after we conclude those votes. We'll just keep going ahead here. Reese, you want to kick it off with the update?
All right, thank you, Governor. So starting off with our project management financial report, the second page of the report shows the dashboard view of all of your industrial commission managed funds with Outdoor Heritage Fund here shown in the corner, but diving deeper into Outdoor Heritage Fund, I think the number you're really looking for is what you have available in the fund today for new commitments. That number is 4.8 million. You have a total cash balance of 41.3 million. Of that amount, 36 is committed to grants and a small amount for administration. To date, cumulative through the Outdoor Heritage Fund, you've approved 232 projects. That's resulted in $222.4 million of private sector investment in North Dakota's outdoor heritage projects. By directive, we are approaching your goal of 15% of funding to Directive D. Just a reminder, Directive D is related to recreation. So page 4 shows the breakout by directive to date in the Outdoor Heritage Funds. And then on page 5, we just show where your funding comes from. course, 100% funded by the oil and gas industry tax dollars. To date, we've received our annual cap of $7.5 million. That starts over July 1st. So July 1st on, the fund will start to fill again to another $7.5 million for a total of $15 million this biennium. Lastly, your Outdoor Heritage Fund Advisory Board met in the Turtle Mountains of North Dakota earlier this month, and they are recommending 7 projects for your consideration today. Total of all requests before you today is 3.9 million compared to 4.8 million available. So we do have enough for all of the requests that were recommended before you today. Happy to answer any questions before turning over to Bob and Tyler.
There's no questions. Take it away, Bob.
My last meeting, so I turned out. Enjoyed working with you all these years. I think we've done great projects out in the state. Finally starting to get some more local projects coming in from state organizations instead of national organizations. That's what we've been kind of shooting for. And we're definitely pushing for the recreation. Anything that comes in, we give them what we can. And it's pretty much playgrounds and stuff. We're limited to $10,000 to give to them. So we basically give them that. But I'm sure there's need for more. But we've been helping them out as much as we can. Like I said, great projects. We got to do our bus tour. We hopped in our bus and our Dakota Farmers Union's bus, and we went and toured 5 or 6 projects, and it was great for our board to be together that day and see what we're actually doing on the ground. It's pretty impressive. I wish we could have built a couple buses and taken people from the legislature and stuff along to see what we're actually doing out there, because it's pretty impressive. So
Next time you guys do that, we'll have to send a video crew along.
yeah,
And try to capture some of what we've seen, because I agree with you. It'd be fantastic if they could see that. And when you think about the impressive amount of private sector matching funds and the amount of projects that have been done through this thing, and not just the legislature, but also the voters that helped, support this initially.
because it all affects them.
Yep.
They're all involved in some kind of recreation, and whether we're keeping cattle out of a river bottom by moving them up and moving the water with them and letting the wildlife and the clean water running into our rivers, it matters to everybody. We do a lot of that. So
Yep.
It's important, and I think we'd have a lot more support in the legislature if they actually came and seen what we're doing out there. So
Yep.
It's not all about Pheasants Forever or anything. It's all conservation. It's doing a lot. So
Do we have any ability to submit a grant on behalf of some organization to the Outdoor Heritage Fund, which would be like we do for these other things, where it's like a marketing grant, where we could submit a grant and then we could take some of the unused funds to actually put together the, I want to call it the annual report, the video report, whatever that would describe, talk to some of the users, talk to the communities, because I think this isn't just a little problem. I think it's a big problem
yeah.
that we don't have.
But we were sponsored last year by Beach, and we cleaned out Odland Dam, and it made a little mud hole into their recreation lake again. And it meant the world to them. They invited us out and sponsored us for a meeting because they were so excited about it. Now it's a big fishery again. And
Yep.
Before it was just 4 feet of water, and farming has changed, and we don't have the erosion we always had before with no-till and everything. So that part's taken care of itself. We just got to fix everything that happened in that period of time. So,
Yep.
So it's exciting. I think it's really cool what we've been doing, and I hope it keeps growing, especially within the state, within the people knowing what we do. Because I still ask people what Outdoor Heritage Fund. They have no idea. So it's kind of frustrating, but
It's got a good name, though. Nobody's against it.
right. Well, we've seen the legislature a few times not be too happy, but we hope to get funding back, full funding, hopefully with this legislative session.
Yeah.
And I'd be more than happy to come in and help lobby for that, because I see what's on the ground and what it's actually doing for the state. I talked to a lot of other states, and they're just envious of us of what we're doing for the outdoors here in North Dakota. So it's a pretty cool thing. So.
Yeah. Well, that'd be great if you'd come back to the legislature.
Yeah.
So, but Reese, do you think under the guidelines, could we do who would be the group that would apply for a grant from the outdoor heritage to market the outdoor heritage?
So we do have the ability to charge back to the fund administrative costs.
Okay.
So we could charge it as an administrative cost and we could contract with, I guess, whoever the commission would like to.
Well, I think we should put together an RFP for that and go, just go ahead and do that. I know that would have my support. And if we can get that done before the legislative session, be the time to do it, get out there this summer and grab some video during when these sites are being
Give them a
used.
10-minute video would just be impressive compared to just seeing it on paper.
Yes, yeah,
The changes before, we have before and after pictures of every project and
Yep.
those old low water head dams and everything that we're changing out, putting fish channels in and everything. It's pretty neat, so.
Plus, it's really green right now, so.
And the grazing, yeah, it's really green now, so. But the grazing and everything, we went to the Black Lake Ranch and they're getting everything back into native prairies and cattle away from the waterways. It's working, but they need help doing that because it's not cheap to do.
Right.
So but to show the worth of that, we've done the Source River Valley, a lot of work down in that Jamestown South area and Cheyenne River. So it's really impressive what's going on.
over your tenure, Bob, did you guys do anything with Gabe Brown ever or any projects with?
I don't believe we did anything with Gabe. No. That's, well, he does grazing things too, but most of it's farming.
Yeah.
Naturally and stuff like that. It would fit.
Yeah.
But
'Cause I know he's local, but interestingly, he's really taken off and now they've got they got, millions of acres under
has a big
management.
following.
Yeah, I mean, internationally even.
Yep.
Okay, well, back on the grant round awards, was there, these are the ones that all came out with a affirmative vote. I know we've had some in the past, but I had heard yesterday, we were at a tribal conference, I heard, would you have a tie on one this time?
Yeah.
And tell me about that project and what was the,
Go ahead.
So, City of Dunseith had applied for, I guess, refurbishment of basketball courts.
Mhm.
In Century Code, we are prohibited from putting basketball courts, but there is an exception if the Industrial Commission determines there's an exceptional circumstance. It's been done twice before throughout the history of the fund. In both cases, the exceptional circumstances were economically disadvantaged communities and increasing access for ADA compliance. In this case, we did present that to the board, let them know that, in our opinion, we felt this would meet one of those exceptional circumstances if they so chose. The vote was a tied vote, and by Century Code, we're not allowed to forward anything that actually says majority of voting members. So if two members don't show up, they're automatically considered a no vote, unfortunately. So it was unfortunate that we were.
is that what happened? Okay.
We are exploring other avenues. I have been working with Les Thomas, and I think we have another option for him for some non-state funding, but a nonprofit that is interested after hearing their presentation
Okay.
and partnering with them.
And you think, is there any chance on the board where if you had a full attendance that it might have come in affirmatively or?
It's a possibility, yes.
Yep.
I think that is one thing that we have flagged for next session. It's odd that none of our other boards and commissions have that requirement, but for outdoor heritage, it's a majority of voting members.
Yep.
So we do want to fix that next session.
Okay, all right.
When you're missing a couple at the meeting, it's tough.
Yeah.
Because I think more projects would have passed on this one if we would have had everyone there.
I think there were 3 that had tied votes.
Yeah, and then we end up, and then the concern that I have, it's not, I mean, when you've got good projects and then the money doesn't get allocated, then it would be a temptation for the legislature to say that the outdoor heritage doesn't need as much money
Right.
to go do that. And that's
You got to have them 7 votes there in the room. And if the people aren't there, it's tough to pass some of them.
Yeah.
That would have passed.
There was
I
the
think
one
right now
project that had 6-4,
Yeah.
but because it states there has to be 7, it didn't pass, even though it had 6-4 of the members that were present. And any of the other boards are boards that would have passed, but OHF is worded differently in Century Code, so it didn't pass.
Well, you maybe got other ones that need to be brought back too, because that's like I said, in any other world, a 6-4 vote is we're going forward.
And you've got small communities coming in and working hard on these projects, and then get the disappointment of it not going through, and it's a good project, so.
Well, they probably are excited because they're like, we won. We got 6-4.
And then they find out that they didn't win.
Okay, all right, well, we got some action, I got multiple action items to take on this one, but you did manage to get 7 of these through, and are we gonna, you wanna just hit the highlights on these and we can vote on these as a package?
Sure.
Yes.
We've got the North Dakota Forest Service statewide windbreak renovation. That's been a well-used, they take these old trees that are dying trees and everything, take them out, put a new shelter belt in. So it helps the farmers and ranchers and people out in the country that have rundown shelter belts, take the trees out and replace them with new trees. So we're not taking away trees, we're just replacing all the dead ones and helping people. City of Belfield Dam, they came in, it's an awesome project. They've got a sportsman's club there that they've got a little dam on the outside of town that they've been doing for years, and it had a leak. And so they came to us, and I went there the other day, and they were already working on it a week after we approved their project. So it's kind of cool. They think they're going to have it full by the 4th of July and the kids using it again. So it's, they're going to replace, they're going to put a beach area in that dam, and they're going to cut the banks down because they have so much trouble with cattails because it's such a flat bank. So they're going to deepen the lake so that the cattails don't come along where all the kids fish. And so they stock it every year. The Game and Fish has been stocking it since the 70s or 80s. And nothing pleases me more than seeing a kid go down Main Street with a bike and a fishing pole tied to it.
Yeah.
It makes me happy that they're not playing a game or something, sitting in their basement. So get them out and playing, and it's a well-used, great organization. They've been busy since the 80s. And it was fun to watch them come in because they had good answers for every question that was asked. I think it's one of the rarities that we had a unanimous, a unanimous vote. Everyone voted for it. So that doesn't happen very often. So
That's great.
that was a good one. North Dakota Natural Resources Trust Bakken Development Working Lands Program. That's another grazing program out in the Badlands. So that's I think it's the second or third one that they've done with us. Very popular out there.
And on those, that they get those private sector, I guess the folks, they've got to participate in plots.
Mm-hmm.
Is that right?
Well, it's strongly recommended to them. They don't have to be in plots, but it's strongly recommended.
Over on this one too, I would note that the Department of Resources also is a partner for reclaiming some of the salt ponds.
And the North Dakota Natural Resources Badlands Restoration Project, that one also was for reclamation of was it oil?
Yeah, the legacy.
Yeah.
Salt.
Yeah. And then the North Dakota Wildlife Federation prescribed fire program. They're going to go after the cedar and the creeping cedar in the Badlands, helping ranchers. And this one has an education part to it that they're going to be educating rural firefighters out in the West and help fund them to go out and help the ranchers burn out the cedar that's encroaching on the grasslands out there. So it's a different way they've come around this with working with the rural fire departments instead of hiring a fire crew to come in, and when they come, they got it burned whether it's windy or not. And that's always really bothered me because I've been on a lot of fires out there and you just don't stop them. So it's you hate to take away your neighbor's pasture trying to save yours too. So
Right.
it's
But this way with rural fire department, they can go on a day when it's.
we know it's going to happen, and they can come and surround it and stop things. So and help with the burn. So that passed. Sunset Park District, that's another playground one. We passed that. McLean County Water Resource, Painted Woods Lake Flood Protection. That's another one of these dams that we're replacing down in the river down there on the Painted Woods that we've done. I think 3 projects down there already. I think there's probably one more after this one, but sounds like the participation and people down in that area year round with skiing and fishing and everything is pretty high, and we've been doing a lot of work with them, and should be a pretty good area for recreation when we get all done with these projects. So sounds like a lot of people use it.
Reese, you probably remember it has been, isn't the water commission has put money into that Painted Woods, right? Multiple
Yeah,
times.
so we did work with this project sponsor. They came to both the Water Commission and us, so we worked with the Department of Water Resources and encouraged them to pick one or the other, but not both. So they decided to come to us.
And I guess that's our 7 projects.
In the Sunset Park, that's Grenora, North Dakota. That's one of the small town, $10,000 park.
Yeah.
Kinds of projects, but I bet they really,
They were happy to get it.
Yeah.
Definitely.
that they were.
Yeah.
Okay, we can take these all as one. We got attachments, it was attachments 20 to 26, but there's a single motion, which is got all of those
Yeah.
on there.
So moved as printed in the booklet attachments 20 through 26. I don't think we've got the Ag Commission though.
So
We want me to go through them?
I think we just did, so.
We did,
We just
okay,
went through
yeah.
them, but if you want
I
to
thought
make,
you wanted me to read them.
no, if you want to make the motion, I'll second it.
I did make the
Oh,
motion.
you did? Okay,
Yeah.
all right, great. I'll second it. I love it.
We're
I'm
always
going to
fighting.
follow Drew's leadership here.
We're always
Second that
fighting
motion.
about things.
Yeah. So we have a motion and a second regarding the seven projects that were approved by the Outdoor Heritage Fund Advisory Board. They're enumerated on the attachment for the minutes. We'll call for the vote.
Attorney General,
Yes.
Governor,
Yes. Motion carries.
Just circle back one quick question on maybe you said this, a project is denied, is there a time requirement before they come back with the same project? Or
No.
so they literally can come back next time? Just say
Actually, we had that happen, I think, last time we had.
Okay, just wondering.
Sometimes we give them recommendations as why
I
we
see.
didn't pass it, and they'll
Yeah, makes
change it
sense.
and come back.
Makes sense, but this sounds like one Brenna mentioned too, and others just maybe got a counting problem,
Yeah,
a presence problem. Yeah, okay, thanks.
and there's nothing you can force people to come to the meeting. It's,
No, you understand.
sometimes we'll have people online, but they didn't do it this time, so.
Okay, we've got a item C, which is the project amendment on scope of work.
So this one is just a very simple change in the scope of work of an existing project that we've already approved. They, after starting the project, determined that it was not feasible to build an earthen fishing pier. Since that was in the original scope of work that we had already approved, we're just asking you for approval to take that out of the scope of work and allow them to spend their funds on the rest of the project.
And what's the dollar amount? Is there a specific dollar amount in this scope of work change?
It would be a no cost, no impact to the budget. And I don't recall off the top of my head the dollar amount that you'd originally approved, but this would not change that dollar amount.
Dollar amount remains fixed, but it will give them flexibility on how they spend the dollars. Okay. Drew?
So moved, sounds pretty controversial, but.
I'll second that motion. We'll call for the vote.
Attorney General, Governor,
Yes. As long as someone can tell me what lake it's on.
Howard, Oliver.
Yep. Howard Opgard Landing, and it's just like, it was like $16,000, I think, did from one part of the
I don't
project.
remember the name
The
of
lake, though, the lake.
Eccleston Lake.
Eccleston.
Eccleston Lake.
Yes. Eccleston. I think this will be the first access on that.
Is somewhere in the I-94 corridor, isn't
It
it?
is between Jamestown and Valley City.
Right beside the interstate.
Yeah.
You see people out there all the time.
Yeah, I see them standing driving on the gravel road, and park their car, or walking
Bunch
down
of
the
equipment, farm equipment on the corner
Yep.
there, and there's always people ice fishing.
Yeah. Okay, so we got a resolution of appreciation for someone who served since 2013, but before, Bob, is the most mispronounced name in North Dakota, or is it?
Perhaps. It's easy to know who telemarketers are.
And how would you like it pronounced this very last time here? Since
Kylan.
Kylan?
Yeah.
Okay, so we, on behalf of the Industrial Commission of North Dakota, which includes Attorney General Drew Wrigley and Ag Commissioner Doug Goring, on this day, we want to present, which will be submitted into the minutes of the North Dakota Industrial Commission's history. But resolution of appreciation, whereas Robert Bob Kylan has admirably served the state of North Dakota since his appointment to the Outdoor Heritage Fund Advisory Board on September 12th, 2013. And whereas Bob has been dedicated to the Outdoor Heritage Fund's mission to enhance conservation practices in the state by providing access for sportsmen and women, supporting agricultural stewardship, enhancing wildlife habitat, and creating outdoor recreation opportunities. And whereas during Bob's tenure with the board, over $85.5 million of Outdoor Heritage Fund dollars have been invested in North Dakota, yielding private sector matches of over $222.4 million towards this important purpose. And whereas since his election as chairman of the Outdoor Heritage Fund Advisory Board on June 7th, 2019, Bob has skillfully led the board with a courteous and respectful spirit, leading to the resourceful investment of Outdoor Heritage Fund dollar in projects which benefit every county and numerous communities in the state. And whereas Bob's dedication to the Outdoor Heritage Fund Advisory Board and to the state of North Dakota will leave a lasting legacy for all citizens for our state and is deserving of this recognition. Now, therefore, the North Dakota Outdoor Heritage Fund Advisory Board and the North Dakota Industrial Commission hereby expresses deep gratitude to Bob for his 11 years of service to the citizens of North Dakota, adopted here at the Industrial Commission on June 26th, 2024. Do we have any other outdoor fund business?
No other business.
Okay, but can you grab Tristan? We'll do if we could.
Want to introduce
Wait,
Tyler
yeah.
Dawkins?
Let's introduce Tyler, and then we're going to grab a picture with you, Bob, before you go.
So Tyler is our new chairman, taking over. Of course, Bob termed out. We would have loved to keep Bob on. He drew the short straw, as he says, when we first created the Outdoor Heritage Fund Advisory Board. We had staggered the terms, and they're limited to 2 terms, but for the first members, they kind of gave them a pass on their first term. So they staggered the terms. Bob is the last original remaining member on the
Yes.
board.
Yep. Yep. The whole, we've been there since the whole.
Long straw or the
Yeah.
short straw?
Been a wealth of experience.
We'll look forward to you lobbying all 80 days.
Yeah.
That'll be good. That'll
I
extend.
better get registered.
85 days.
Not here.
Not here, no.
Tyler, where's home for you?
Originally from Williston, I live in Minot now.
And what do you do when you're not volunteering for important state work?
So I work for Hess, oil and gas company there. I spend a lot of time fishing, hunting.
Well, it's perfect background for this.
It is good. Where'd you grow up? You said
Williston.
Williston.
Yeah. We've talked before. We had those Wrigley wells up north
Yep, I remember.
10 years ago, but
I think having a coyote lead the board's probably.
yeah.
That's right. That's right. Yep, the 2 lowest producing Bakken wells.
Yeah.
Right there's my. Little horse farm. That's where I got this new suit, you know. Yeah, that's great. Well, thanks.
Did we locate our photographer?
I think Jace went to get him, Governor.
Okay,
So
all
he
right.
wasn't in there.
Can't locate him right now.
Okay,
We can just take a picture with.
okay, you got your fantastic iPhone there. We get that. They take good pictures over.
They do.
You get it.
Where's that?
Sure.
Where's home for you again?
Saltart.
How's the golf course doing there?
Talk about opening it probably in July here, the beginning of July.
Or thought getting that thing.
I was wondering about if he should have gotten the golf course business.
He was whining about that about a month ago. I told him he seems like a golf executive kind of.
He's about
He's got the
$4.5
temperament for
million
it.
into that job.
Open this. Yeah, I think we can. One.
One for me, real quick. Real quick. 1, 2, 3, all smiling faces.
Tyler, let's grab one with you too, since we, you're stepping into that chair role.
Tyler, if you really screwed up,
Right over there, right here.
colorful.
Files.
We're gonna get rid of these pictures. That's why we always wait for something good. Yeah.
Wait till the end.
Well, you know, in 2 terms.
Felonies or imprisoned or anything.
Yeah, make sure.
Yeah, that's
Thank
good.
Your willingness to do it though. Oh, that's great. You'll like it.
I'm sorry.
Yes.
Thank you.
See you.
It's fun. Fun working with you.
I'll let you know when I go up the call.
All right.
Quite a legacy there. It's great.
Come on down South Park. We'll go golfing someday.
No kidding.
We'll see ya.
Tell Jim to be waiting for us in the clubhouse.
Afternoon, Mark.
Good afternoon.
Want your picture? You've been here a couple meetings. You're ready.
Okay, fire away on Department of Mineral Resources. And Ed, good to see you as well.
And
It's like, let's get bumped again.
Let's see what we can do. It's a possibility.
those fossils aren't getting any newer or older.
I'm getting older.
So we have,
Fire away.
we have one order for today. It's a application of Continental Resources for a saltwater disposal well. And Hessbach and Investments 2 LLC filed a letter of objection. You can see on the map up there, the yellow square kind of yellow square in the upper central is where they propose to put the saltwater disposal well. And that you can see a pad just north of there. That's Hess's pad. It's about 1,766 feet away, and where this well is to be drilled in the Indian Cara Formation, about 1,410 feet away from their wells. So Hess's concerns were that one is the site is in a Hess operated spacing unit. Hess has only drilled one well in there from that pad up to the north there. They're going to put another pad on the north line of that section, that's section 3 there. They don't know where yet. And they plan to fully develop that space unit. They thought this disposal well would have a negative impact on their development, since their Hess claims it's generally known to be overpressured in the area and would require their future oil wells to have a 4-string casing. Another string casing across the Dakota piece and the liner. That adds cost to the wells. Continental countered that Indian Cara Formation is not overpressured in that area. The nearest disposal well is roughly a little over a quarter mile away, and that well is injecting roughly 100,000 or 30,000 barrels a month at 980 psi, and that is average for Indian Cara Formation well. So it doesn't appear that the Indian Cara is overpressured in that area. It's going to be a direction or horizontal well, so the well is going to drill to the north, and then this is a commission map. The yellow or the red dots are wells where we know they've installed 4 strings of casing, and the green ones are permitted. That's roughly, the closest ones are roughly 7.5 miles away. We don't feel it's overpressured in the area, and so Hess did not appear at the hearing, did not submit any evidence in support of his arguments. So therefore, we recommend that you approve this disposal location.
Okay. Approval. We got a motion. Do we have the Ag Commissioner back on? Okay, I'll second. Questions or comments? Call for the vote.
Attorney General?
Yes.
Governor?
Yes, motion carries.
That's it. Thank you.
That's it. Okay.
Governor, we had asked Mark to move his quarterly report to next month, but we were still hoping to add this meeting if there's time.
Yeah, Phil, how long is your update going to be?
Couple minutes, Governor.
Okay, great. Let's go, Ed. We're excited to have you here. Thank you, Mark.
You're welcome.
Okay, the graph on top of page one, we had, in the first quarter, we had one oil company geologist in the core library, along with geologists from the Geological Survey, EERC, professors from NDSU, as well as Morehead State. All told, and then graduate students from UNT, Colorado School of Mines, about 8,400 feet of core. We photographed approximately 4,400 feet of core, generating 6,100 photographs for the subscription site. And we photographed another 3,900 feet with a tripod. 311 photographs. The picture on the bottom of page one, we had, sometimes we've got companies, or in this case, it was a professor from Morehead State that wasn't able to get up there. So they took our photographs off the website, just marked for us where they wanted us to cut billets or pieces of rock off the back of the core so they could make thin sections, which we do even when the companies are there. We still do that for liability. We'll cut those, but that's an example of those photographs being used.
So this is Minnesota State Morehead?
Yeah.
And then do they have a geology department?
Yes. Yep. They still do. Whereas NDSU, I keep
Yep.
saying doesn't now, or won't. So unfortunately.
Is that, make a note of that, Jace? You would recommend that they, geology at NDSU, I'm presuming.
And I did write the president of NDSU that I thought it was a mistake, that because we know, and I think I've mentioned this before, in 2030, there's supposed to be a shortfall of 100,000 geoscientists in the country. So
It is not, I mean, did they think things had kind of played out in North Dakota with regard to geology, or did they give a reason?
they didn't give a reason that made sense to me.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's interesting.
They did point out, I have, give me an opportunity to vent. They did point out they were able to, with the professors they were cutting, they were able to take that money and then put their provost on funds. So directly taking money out of faculty into administration, which is happening all over the country, and it's really going in the wrong direction, as I think. Anyway.
And geology was very popular with athletes when I was there too.
Yeah, and they're all out making the Bakken work now, so thanks.
Exactly, yep.
Yeah, a lot, we hired a lot of good students from that program, and a lot of them.
Well, it just seems like the future is very bright.
And it was, they offered an undergraduate program which was a feeder program to University of North Dakota's graduate program in geology. So it just, I thought it was wrong on a lot.
Yeah, tell them, unlike the Attorney General, you can be involved in a dig next summer. There's all sorts of things you can do.
We got you.
Yeah, I know that.
On pages 2 and 3.
Was that a dig about the dig?
That's a dig about the dig. I get one in every time. You talk about the cash management, and I talk about digging rocks.
So we, on pages 2 and 3, a couple of salt maps. Again, this is the fourth in a series of shallow salts that we're looking at for potential hydrocarbon storage in salt caverns. PGA so we're looking at the Opeechee Formation. The PGA is the upper salt in the Opeechee, up to 120 feet thick. It extends over, this is a thickness map, but you can see it extends over a fairly large area. And then over on page 3, I try to get these to line up, but this is the Opeechee B. It's a couple hundred feet lower. And that thickness only gets up to about 25 feet on average. And there's salt dissolution. It doesn't look like a really good candidate.
Where the Opeechee name came from?
I should know, but
Person or a place?
Typically they're place names, but that one may be an exception. It depends on how old, when it was originally established. And then on pages 4 and 5, now we're jumping up to the surface. We put out a series of county maps on the glacial Lake Agassiz clays. There's 2 clays, a Chirac, and then the Brenna Formation below it. And on the top of page 5, you can see the Chirac is this silty laminated clay. It's typically about 20 feet thick or so, where the Brenna below it is much thicker. It's a very clean clay. Blue-gray clay, and unfortunately, neither of those clays are good for weight bearing. And so, and especially the Brenna. So the maps that we're putting out on page 6, we're just taking parts of Cass County, the Chirac and the Fargo area, again, 15 to 25 feet thick. The Brenna then on the right, I'm sorry, the depth to the Brenna is essentially the thickness of the Chirac. It's interchangeable. Mark, we don't know though, for engineers, we're actually now putting out a Chirac map in case they can't figure that out. But we just thought if somebody Googles Chirac thickness, they won't get the Brenna depth. So we thought just to cover that. But and then over on the right side in blue is the thickness of the Brenna, which is again 70, 80 feet thick in Fargo area. So any large building has got to run pilings down at least 100 feet, 110 feet to get into a weight-bearing glacial till beneath these glacial lake clays. And then if you look at the photograph on page 6, looking this is just north of Fargo, looking southwest to the west bank of the Red River. That's mostly all Chirac that you're seeing. Again, those kind of brown colorations. There's a little bit of driftwood over on the right, and that where you can see a color change, and that's where the Brenna comes in, right there. In fact, we used to go to the Poppers cemetery on the north edge of Fargo. We dropped down just below the cemetery, and that was a great outcrop for the Chirac.
When you say they're not good at weight bearing, I mean, one of the issues with these clays, if they get exposed to the surface and moisture, then they've got enormous capability to actually expand.
Yes.
I mean, literally lift a building up.
Yep.
If they get water and come in contact. I mean, it's remarkable that it can do that.
Yeah, these really, for the Brenna, most of those clays are eroded pure shale. And that's why the coloration is very similar to the pure shale itself, the Cretaceous shale. But that's the problem. You add water, they can swell 16, 30 times their size. So then when they dehydrate, then they shrink down 16, 32%. So that makes it really difficult for building. The photographs on page 7, we finally got back in after almost a year into that area in paleontology. We hope we got the water problem solved. Becky, whose desk right now is next to the sump pump, is really hoping because they weren't able to find a interior alarm, so they put an exterior alarm on there, which I don't know how many decibels is, but if water gets into the sump and the pump kicks in, that alarm will go off. So, certainly going to cite her with that. We look at regulatory programs. We issued 3 permits for a geothermal program, all commercial.
But did you get the water thing resolved?
Yeah, we think so. First, they cut into it in the winter and then ran that into the storm sewer. And then they sat there, they let the excavation that they cut into the slab sit open for 4 or 5 months. And then just to make sure they had that sump and the pump in there.
And where does the sump discharge to?
It actually goes into the same place, but it goes up in the ceiling. It's one of those things where it made sense for them to run it up down the ceiling, come down in another office, and then out. And so it makes sense to us. If it makes sense to them, as long as it works, we're fine with that. Looking at publications, 41 during the first quarter, 41 of those were landslide maps, and then a dozen other. Look at presentations, page 9. 8 of those were tours of the paleontology lab and the state fossil collection, and some of those included Dakota, the modified hadrosaur. We did do a prehistoric fishing. Sometime I'll come in and talk about that because that goes over great with grade schools. We did Sunrise 2nd grade and the Montessori group. Did the Science Olympiad for paleontology. So next year we'll do rocks. And then as far as judging, and then did for the Horizon 8th graders, which is a group we're really trying to get to. We talked about careers in paleontology and geology. And then on page 10, I wanted to rush through so I could talk a little bit about this. I don't know if you recognize that photograph on the top of page 10, but in the Pioneer Room, that's Ellen Roberts, taken in 1910 in Slope County. And it used to be on the left side of the room. Now it's on the right side when you walk in. But I got to know her in the mid to late 1980s. Fantastic woman. Of course, they were a pioneer family. In fact, so you look at the top of page 11, Black Butte. They lived 2 miles to the north. So if you look at the aerial photograph, page 11, I've got Black Butte looking to the west-northwest. Black Butte is BB. CB is Chalky Buttes. Highway 85 runs just parallel, just west of Chalky Buttes, running north-south. And then you can see the Pope Ranch and the Roberts Ranch. And then if you, in the last 30 years, if you drove down that highway, you saw Stanley Pope had the open range. He had that old oven sitting out there with the open range and the sign. So show the humor. Unfortunately, Stanley was killed about 8 years ago by a cow. Was crushed against the fence there. So Ellen's mother, Elizabeth Roberts, had a camera. So there's over 200 photographs of that area from around that 1910 area. When I first talked to Ellen, I talked to her about another thing. I'll just say something real quick about that in a second. But first thing she said to me is, when I was 15 years old, I collected fossils, Titanothere fossils with Earl Douglas, the Carnegie Museum out of Pittsburgh. And so this is a picture that her mother took of Earl Douglas carrying a skull out of the Chalky Buttes area. Titanotheres, as far as we know, haven't been collected from there, but I thought, for her 85 years later to remember, or 75 years later to remember that terminology, it's very interesting.
So do we think that some of North Dakota's fossils are at Carnegie Museum?
Yeah, over 72. I asked them, I just wrote to them 2 weeks ago, and they were kind enough to send me, I said, I'm just interested in skulls so I can figure out maybe what he's carrying. Those were likely rhinoceros skulls, but they had over 72 skulls and jaws. They grouped those together, and some camels and some carnivorous dog-related oreodonts, all these things. So I told Clint Boyd about this, and he started salivating. Because just imagine collecting in 1910 when probably nobody had collected through there at that time. Anyway, what I was talking to Ellen about was you can see some of the head newspapers, 1930s. Slight Butte is halfway between Black Butte and Chalky Buttes on the west side of Highway 85. It got reported as a volcanic eruption or a big explosion. It was a landslide. You can see part of the scarp, that upper sandstone cap rock broke off. So it was a combination of a rock slide and debris flow, and there's a chute, just like an avalanche chute that runs through there. And so state geologists in 1932 went out and talked to the Roberts right here at their homestead. And that was the last story he worked on before he passed away later that year. And then Wilson, state geologist from 41 to 69, was out there in the late 40s, early 50s, talking to them again about that. And then I call her in 1987, and we talk about this. She thought it was very interesting. But I'll close with, to me, what's very interesting. She said, so they were there from 1903 or something like that, about that time frame. And Amadon had not been established yet. Belfield hadn't been established, or Bowman. Those were all around 1907, 1910, 1915. So she said every time a traveler came through, it just so happened they would quite often stop at their ranch. And she said you couldn't turn anyone away. There was nowhere else for them to go. So they'd often sleep in her bed. So she'd have to go sleep in her parents' or her brother's bed. Harry, who's a famous, kind of like Robert Hansen, a famous historian for that area. But she said they would just get rid of bed bugs, and the next travelers would come through, and she'd get bed bugs. So her mother would take a plate of raw meat, put it under that bed, And she said that took care of the bed bugs, all went to that raw meat. So.
Remember that the next time.
Yeah.
Get a raw burger.
Yeah.
That's exactly what I'm gonna do. Read my mind.
That concludes my report.
Well, thank God we didn't miss that.
Love the history and
That's great stuff.
love the fact that you and Clint have reached out to the Carnegie Museum to get reconnected. And of course, a lot of in the news recently, it happened a few years ago, but the young boys that found the T-Rex. So fun to see that.
That was a good story too.
We wanted, we understand why they went to Tyler, because he was a classmate. But we were really wishing they would have reached out to us, because then we would have kept us in North Dakota.
Sure.
Juvenile T-Rex, we just found it.
Really?
So we don't know yet what's there, how much is there, but it's others.
I want to be clear, you said you found one a week after with it alive or just a fossil?
Oh, no, that was an fossil.
I know we're working on de-extinction here
Yes.
in North Dakota.
Well,
You're gonna regret it when it happens. I'll tell you right now.
Also, I don't know if you remember, we talked just briefly about another woolly mammoth that I got called on in 1988. I'm trying to wrap things up. So I reached back out. We ran up to that location, dug down. We were working with the Historical Society, the penetrating radar. Looked like both were there. We dug down and found both some tusks and regular bones. So we're going to be going back there in September.
And
Nice.
what quadrant of the state is that in?
It's up in the northwest.
Okay.
Nice.
Exciting. Way to
Probably on my farm.
See
See if I let you on there.
All right, Bill, we got 10 minutes or less to hear
Okay.
your report.
I sort of blaze through with just the high-level updates then. On the Northwest Landowners pore space case, the summary judgment is happening on Friday. It's scheduled for all day up in Botno. On the conservation rule, that's the one where BLM is turning non-use of federal land into a designated use of it. North Dakota, joined by Montana and Idaho, filed our lawsuit on Friday. And Utah and Wyoming filed another lawsuit in Utah last week as well. On the venting and flaring rule, North Dakota and 4 other states are suing here in North Dakota. We had the preliminary injunction hearing last week before Judge Traynor, and we're awaiting his decision. The greenhouse gas rule, that one, the stay motions have been heavily briefed. There's 27 states challenging that one, along with half dozen industry coalitions at least, probably more. Thousands of pages have been briefed on stay motions. The window is still open for more parties to join. So we're currently waiting for the either more briefs to be filed or for the court's decision on the pending stay motions. And then for the MATS rule, that's the one where North Dakota is leading a 23-state coalition in the DC circuit. We filed our initial stay motion. One of the industry coalitions filed a stay motion. We're expecting a few more industry stay motions, and EPA has requested to push back the response deadline until end of July.
Okay, and then we skipped over the quarterly federal lease sales, number small.
Yep, the next scheduled update is in August.
And that's where the
That's where Judge Traynor,
the Judge Traynor asked them to explain why they're approving or not approving lease by lease.
Yes, sir.
Good.
About a year ago, he enjoined them from unilaterally stopping, and then there have been periodic updates for them to explain how they are fulfilling their statutory duties.
Great, thank you. You want to go, any questions on any of those?
No.
Okay, how about under federal regulatory updates? Moving to the next 3 on your list.
No updates for you gentlemen, unless you have questions on them.
No questions here. Fun to hear that we got more and more states. I shouldn't say fun, but great that we've got more states that are joining us. And I want to thank Bill, you and the Attorney General for your leadership, like on the MATS rule and others. Appreciate this is
Just exactly to your point. There's been a lot of attention paid back in, and I'm just going to compliment Phil publicly that he has made great pains along with industry and others to make sure that we are putting forward excellent products that people want to join, and they're looking at these briefs. They're quite good, and we're very proud of that. We're proud, not like, look at my son shoot baskets. I'm talking about just proud of the fact that the best foot is being put forward, that we got states clamoring to join. So Phil had a really heavy equipment operations injury recently when he was playing soccer with his nephew. So he's going with one arm tied behind his back. He's still killing it. No, it's been very good.
It appears that you're either ambidextrous or right-handed.
Right-handed,
Okay,
fortunately.
well, it's good. It's a good deal.
I want to mention too that several of my colleagues have noted, we go through these matters as Attorney General when you decide to opt on to, and they've noticed too that the work product coming out is something that they're really happy to join. We do that not to just pat them back, to say that we are doing the best we can to put forward a great product, and industry's been fantastic, and stakeholders, people have been terrific. And that includes your team, Gov. They've been great.
Well, I know that Jason, John Wright, and many others on the team, and I know Reese and the NDIC, everybody's
Yep,
we got
they're doing
in
great.
the DMR, we've got a real team effort, whole of government approach.
For sure.
These things that are affecting what affects every citizen in North Dakota, because this little list that we went over quickly is represents whether or not we're going to have.
Yeah.
I mean, our three largest industries are under full attack, and so this is it's really important work that everybody's doing.
For sure, and everybody hears different information too. Your team gets it from some people, or sometimes we hear from the same person, different perspectives, and whatever. Whenever everybody's working pretty collegially, we end up getting a good full picture of how to move forward on I'll put the small p politics of it, just understanding the lay of the land of the state. So they've done a great job, and we really appreciate that as well. Super helpful.
Is there any other business that Karen and Reese before the thing? Well, again, thanks to the whole industrial commission team, the small but mighty team, and the breadth of once again the breadth of issues covered. Is Doug back?
Yeah, I got back, but it sounds like I got back for the end of reports. No business.
You did, but we had some good ones, and we appreciate you making the effort to dial in, Commissioner. So thank you for that. Good luck with your meetings. Thanks for representing North Dakota at the meetings that you're at. And again, thanks for everybody here on the team for all the work that went into this. And the meeting is adjourned, and the next meeting is July 30th.
That was great.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Phil.